If you're over 50 and you've never thought about trying keto, but you have questions like, am I too old for something like this? Or is keto beneficial at my age? That's completely understandable because most of us have eaten in a certain way for most of our lives. And the idea of doing the keto thing can seem difficult or unrealistic. But I came across a study that I think is worth talking about because it didn't look at people in their younger years doing this. It looked at people in our demographic. And honestly, it gave a pretty interesting answer. I'll put the link in the description below if you want to read it yourself. But this study came out of the Mayo clinic system, and they looked at 200 patients. The average age was right around 70. These weren't biohackers, they weren't fitness influencers, but real people with real medical problems. And most of them had multiple medical conditions, high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, diabetes. And all of these patients tried some version of a ketogenic diet. Now, right off the bat, I want to be clear about something. This was not a perfect study. It wasn't a randomized trial. There was no control group, and keto wasn't standardized. So we're not talking about a tightly controlled textbook diet. This was messy, real-world data. But sometimes that can be useful because it reflects what actually happens outside of a lab. And here's what they found. About 2/3 of these patients, around 67%, actually achieved the goal that they started the diet for. If they were trying to lose weight, almost 80% of them did that. If they were trying to improve their blood sugar, just over half saw improvement. Some reported improvements in energy, some reported improvement in overall quality of life, a lot of positive stuff. Now, is that proof that keto is a miracle? No, but it is proof of something else that I think is even more important for this audience. It shows that people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s can actually adopt this way of eating and stick with it long enough to see results. And I think that's important because one of the biggest dietary myths with aging is this perception by people that I'm too old to change at this point. And this study pushes back on that pretty clearly. But there's another side to this as well, because not everything was perfect. About 15% of patients had some side effect, constipation, changes in cholesterol. A couple had more serious issues like pancreatitis. Though again, remember, these were patients, many of whom had baseline medical problems to begin with. And here's the other thing. Most of these patients didn't even have formal dietary instruction with this. They were figuring it out on their own, which in my opinion is where a lot of people get into trouble, because keto isn't just about cutting carbs. It's really about being intentional about what we eat. And that's where I think we need to shift the conversation. Also, if you've ever thought about trying keto, but you don't want to do it in a rigid all or nothing way, I wrote a short ebook called KETUITIVITY. It's a big word, I know, but it's really a simple way to approach this intuitively, especially for people over 50. It's a completely free download. I'll put the link down in the description below, or you can go to KETUITIVITY.com, because of what I've seen over the years, both in the ER and working with patients who are trying to lose weight, is that people who succeed long-term with their weight, improving their blood glucose, their insulin resistance, or A1C, they don't follow rigid rules forever, because most of us just aren't wired that way. But those people who are successful, they develop awareness. They learn how their body responds to food. They adjust based on their energy level and getting in touch with how food makes them feel, not just a rule book of what's allowed and what's not. And that's really the idea behind KETUITIVITY. It's not strict keto, but learning how to move along a healthy, lower carb spectrum in a way that actually works for your body. Because at the end of the day, this study doesn't tell us that keto is the answer for everyone, but it does tell us something I think that's important, that you're not too old to change. You're not too old to improve your metabolism, and you don't have to be stuck where you are. The key isn't just what diet you choose, but how you approach your nutrition in a way that actually fits into your life. This isn't medical advice, so discuss any dietary changes with your own doctor. But if you want a simple way to look at this, you can grab a free copy of KETUITIVITY at KETUITIVITY.com. It'll walk you through how to think about this without overcomplicating it, with lots of pictures, and you can talk it over with your doctor. If you haven't seen this video about visceral fat, it's coming up next. As always, thanks for watching, and please share this video with someone you feel would benefit from watching it as well. All the best to you, and I'll see you in the next video.